The city was supposed to be a place of opportunity. That's what they told us when they took the farms. You'll be better off in town, they said. Closer to services, closer to work, closer to the future. But the city just wasn't built for us. It was built to contain us. The arrival. The first thing that hit me was the noise. The noise of engines, sirens, voices shouting over one another. The constant hum of 1,000 machines running at once. We drove the truck down a boulevard lined with glass towers, their windows dark and reflective, like they were staring down at us. The billboards flashed with bright slogans. Efficiency for all, one said. Work credits equal freedom, said another. The future is automated, said another one. The kids pressed their faces to the windows, their eyes wide. My wife held my arm, her nails digging in. This isn't for us, she whispered. And she was right. But we had nowhere else to go. They assigned us a place, Block 19, Tower C. Our unit was a box stacked on the other boxes, 30 floors above the street. One room divided into 4. The walls were so thin that we could hear our neighbors cough. The kitchen was a narrow strip with a plastic stove that only worked when the credit balance was high enough. The bathroom smelled faintly of mildew. The kids' bedroom was barely wide enough for 2 cots. At night, the hum of the ventilation system drowned out our whispers. Sometimes I wondered if the hum was listening. My wife stood by the window our first evening, looking out at the rows of towers. It's like a hive, she said, and we're the worker bees. But I didn't feel like a bee. I felt like a prisoner. In this city, we didn't buy food anymore. We were issued credits. Each week, I'd log into the city system, scan my wrist chip, and watch the numbers flicker across the screen. Enough for rice, beans, processed loaves, powdered milk. Meat was rare, but fruit was even rarer. At the distribution center, we stood in line for hours under the eyes of security drones. The shelves were lined with identical gray packages, each stamped with a barcode. My daughter asked once, "Where does it all come from?" "From the machines," I said, and she frowned. "But don't they need people?" I couldn't answer that question. Jobs weren't jobs anymore either. They were assignments. You logged in, scanned your chip, and the system told you where to go. Sometimes it was sorting packages, other times it was cleaning hallways, and sometimes nothing at all. Nothing paid much. Most of it paid in credits, not cash. I tried to keep my head down and tried to prove that I was useful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the work was busy work, designed to keep us tired and distracted and too worn out to ask any questions. My wife took on shifts at the laundry facility. She came home with burns on her hands from the steam. At night, we lay side by side in silence, both too exhausted to speak. School wasn't a building anymore. It was a screen. The kids sat in front of terminals for hours each day, their faces lit blue, their eyes dull. The teachers were voices from speakers, programs repeating the same lessons over and over. When my daughter asked a question once, the system replied, "Error, please repeat." She never asked a question again. My son grew restless in a way I remembered from the fields. He needed to run, to climb, to feel the dirt under his nails, but there was nowhere to run, and there was no dirt, only concrete. At night, he whispered to me, "Daddy, can we just go home?" And I had no words. Cameras were everywhere we went. On the street corners, in the hallways, in the ceilings of our apartment. They were small black lenses, blinking red. We learned quickly not to raise our voices, and not to curse the system, and not to complain too loudly. Neighbors who did disappeared. One day I came home to find my wife sitting frozen on the couch. "The camera moved," she whispered. I looked up, and the little lens above the door was pointed straight at us. But maybe it always had been. There was a market downtown, a real one. People were selling trinkets, home-sewn clothes, and jars of jam smuggled in from the countryside. We went once just to feel human again. A man at a stall leaned close, whispering, "You guys from the farms?" I nodded yes. He slid me a small jar across the table, and inside was honey, thick, golden, and glinting in the sun. "From bees," he said. I hadn't tasted honey since before the takeover. My daughter dipped a finger and her eyes went wide. It was sweet, too sweet, almost painful. We bought it with half of our credits for the week, and it was worth it. The city wore us down in ways the farm never had. Over time, my wife grew quiet. Her laughter was gone. Sometimes she just sat by the window for hours staring at nothing. My son grew angry, his fists clenched, snapping at his sister. Once he punched the wall so hard it cracked. My daughter would cry in her sleep. And me? I started waking in the night, drenched in sweat, hearing phantom machines humming in the distance. The farm had been hard, but this city was worse, because the farm had been ours. The city wasn't. Whispers spread in the towers, of people sneaking out, of people heading back to the abandoned farmhouses. Sometimes the families living off the grid and hiding from the drones, planting gardens in secret. "They'll catch them," my wife said. "Maybe," I answered, "but at least they'll be free." The idea stuck in my head, and it began festering. At night, I dreamed of fields, not the endless corporate ones, but ours, the crooked rows, weeds and all, and I wondered if we'd made a huge mistake coming to this city. This city wasn't a sanctuary, it was a cage. We traded wide fields for narrow hallways, soil for concrete, and silence for the constant hum of machines. They said it was for our own good, that we'd be safer here, even more productive, closer to the future. But the city wasn't built to give us a future. It was built to keep us contained. And every day, as I watched my family fade inside those gray walls, I felt it. The land still called to us. Even if it no longer wanted us, even if it had been claimed by the machines, even if returning meant risking everything. The land was still home, and this city was not.